As we're continuing our learning on the Pythagorean theorem, there are a few things that we want to focus on. First is that the Pythagorean theorem deals specifically with a right triangle. Here we have the example when we label the two legs A, B, and the hypothesis C. When we are looking at this particular theorem, the equation we use is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Continuing our learning, we are going to stick with the same essential questions that we've already covered just barely. How is the Pythagorean theorem used to identify side lengths? When can the Pythagorean theorem be used to solve real-life patterns? You had one real-life example previous videos, and hopefully what's going to happen is that today we're going to get a little bit more hands-on actual work in finding how to identify side lengths. So here we have find the length of a diagonal of a rectangle, and we know that the rectangle has an actual length of 15 inches and a width of 8 inches. The length is always the longest side and the width is the shortest side. Then when we're trying to find the length or the measurement of the diagonal, we can use this knowledge and our skills with the Pythagorean theorem to come up with a correct answer. So once you have the problem written down, go ahead and push play and let's dig right into it. So here we have the idea that one side is 8, one side is 15, and we do not know what C is. All we did was take these numbers and plug them into our equation. So the Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I labeled a as 15, so we plugged 15 squared into the equation, and then I picked b as 8, and we plug 8 squared into the equation so that we can have this opportunity to evaluate it. Referring back to a little bit of a conversation that we've previously had, when we think about the necessariness of our sides, does it matter which one I label B and A? That is a question I'm going to leave for you guys. I'm not actually going to take the time to give you the answer because we've discussed it, had an open discussion, and I think each and every one of you's opinion is very important. So maybe write it down over to the side, and then we'll continue to have a discussion when given the opportunity. So now that we have those numbers in, we can use our handy calculator to evaluate them. Remember, 15 squared means 15 times 15. 15 times 15 is 225. 8 times 8, which is a little bit of a smaller square, so hopefully we're familiar with it, is 64. So we have 225 plus 64 equals c squared. Using our knowledge, we just added those two numbers together, so 225 plus 64 is 289. Now if you'll notice, I switched it to where c squared is on the left hand side. This is completely doable just because I like to read it in regards to my variable first. But if you want to keep it as 289 equals c squared, either way means the same thing. Now for the tricky part. How can we find out what c is? Well, what c squared means, remember guys, I'm terrible with this, I've got to get a stylus, is the same thing as c times c equals 289. So we want to try to find out what number times itself is equal to 289. To do so, as math students, we have a skill that is called taking the square root. So if we were to take the square root in our calculator, which the square root symbol looks like this, square root of 289, we would have determined that C is equal to 17. So, now that we return to our question says find the length of the diagonal of the rectangle when you have the length is 15 inches and the width is 8 inches. Hopefully, you have an answer of 17 inches. So when we are practicing using the Pythagorean theorem to solve these right triangles, you guys are going to have to bear with me in my clicking as we are going to work through some of the problems together. This is for your benefit. To help with this, if you're feeling comfortable, you may stop the video and continue on. But here we have 5 as a side and 12 as a side, and we do not know C. So 5 and 12, well, now that you already got the answer, we could do 5 squared plus 12 squared is equal to C squared. 5 squared was 25. 12 squared is 144. When we add those together, we will get 169 equals C squared. And then we will take the square root of both sides so that this would cancel out to give us just C, and C was equal to 13. I know this is really messy, guys. If you want to write the problem down and then pause and ask me to come talk with you about this, we could go through the next one. So it looks a little bit different here. We actually know what C is because our lengths are the shorter ones, our legs, and our hypotenuse is the longest one. So we have the longest one as 26. So we know that it is going to equal 26 squared. B, we do not know, so we're going to put B squared. And then by process of elimination, we can determine that A is what is left. So we have 10 squared plus B squared is equal to 26 squared. Oftentimes, the hardest part for us is actually taking the time to set it up. So we want to make sure and know the vocabulary words that we went over in the last video, so it's easy for us to plug in the particular values into our equation. Thinking about the square roots that we know, we want to take 100, well, I gave you the answer. 10 times 10 would give us 100, so we'll have 100 plus B squared is equal to 26 times 26, which we may not know, so we'll have to use a calculator. And it is 676. Now this is where solving one-step and two-step equations comes in handy. Because we don't actually know what this value is, we could guess and check, but we also have the skills that are necessary to solve this. So in doing so, what we want to do is start by dividing our two sides and then looking if we are trying to focus on our B, then what we want to do is move everything away from it. So what we have going on over here by it is 100, which is positive. So to move it, we will subtract 100 from both sides. Oh, that was a terrible line. Resulting in b squared is equal to 576. So we need to know some number that multiplies by itself to give us 576. So when we are thinking about this particular equation, we know that 26 is 776. So we can use this time to start using a process of elimination if we do not have our calculator. And so by doing so, I know that it is going to be lower than 26. And what I know about 20, because I work very well with my tens numbers, so 20 would give me 400. So the answer for B has to be approximately some number between 20 and 25. Using that same logic, we could actually narrow it down. We know that 20 times 20 is 400, so we could eliminate that and say that it's somewhere between 21 and 25, which gives us a little bit closer. But for the sake of all of our assignments, we want to try to get the exact answer. So the exact answer when we plug it into our calculator is that B is equal to 24. So here it talks about the labeling, works through the exact same problem we did with a little bit better looking slide, and we will derive the answer as b squared is equal to 576, similar to what we did. Taking the square root of both sides, b is equal to 24. So I'm feeling confident that you guys are ready to go ahead and begin. This video will continue to go through some examples, but if you feel ready as well, please stop the video and proceed to the next part of your checklist.